When making my animation short film and spending 1 full month on the animation process in the 7 months of filmmaking, I learned a few lessons that I want to share with you today. First, just a reminder, you still have some time to order my animation artbook on Kickstarter. The English version is available as a digital book for €8. So, first lesson, animating with a small amount of drawings. You may know that in animation we have 24 images per second, and the classic way is to draw 12 drawings per second, so each drawing stays 2 images on screen. But for budget reasons or just for the style of it, we can use even less drawings, so 1 drawing every 3 frames or 4 frames or even less. And in my film, the basis was 1 drawing for 4 images, and sometimes there is 2 images for specific movement. I have that example here from a run cycle, which is composed of only 4 drawings. I tried to choose the essential poses and to make some variations between the 2 characters so they don't have the legs in the same position at the same time. It could be smoother, of course, but I think it's working pretty well with the art direction globally of the film. I also have that example here in another shot. You can see that it's mostly 4 frames per drawing, and sometimes for the blinking, for example, it's 2 frames. The spacing is very important. You can see here 2 poses close to one another. Then we have a big spacing and another one close to the previous. So the principle of ease out, ease in. And I don't have any in between those poses, for example. So it's really snappy. And that shot is also an example of what I do with silhouettes, another important part of the animation. The goal in animation is to have every pose being clear and readable. So even if you make your pose only a silhouette, a black color only, you should be able to know what the character is doing. On the key poses at least, because for every pose I still struggle a bit with that part. But you can see here on that page that I also try to have some arcs with the silhouettes. So there is a flow within the shot, within the composition of it. And in that shot here, you can see that the silhouette is really changing a lot from the start when she is scared to the end where she is happy. And of course, I wanted to add life to my animation with a few details. To add life, you don't necessarily have to add many drawings. In that shot, I only made the eyes moving a bit in a cycle. So I drew 3 or 4 drawings and I made it a cycle within Callipeg and keep the shot alive even if the rest of the lines are not moving. I also added some sticky parts on the hands. It's not difficult to animate, it's only a few shapes growing up and down, but it can make your animation a bit more lively. I also added some boiling line on some shots, like the first one. When the character is not moving, I drew a few times the same pose and I make it a cycle. So you can see a little vibration on the line, even if the character is not moving. That's kind of a cheap possibility to make it alive. In that shot, the first version was that. Emily was very focused on what's in front of her, so no eye blinking, but someone during the live streams in which I made that shot told me, why not adding a blink? It could add something. So I tried, I added a few drawings, the eyes closing, opening again, and indeed it worked. I thought it was a better shot. Other principle, don't make everything moving at the same time. That's also a key principle in animation, the staging, what is moving and when. A nice example of that is that shot here, where we have the 3 characters moving at the same time. So I had to first animate Emily in front, like the main focus. She's moving a lot and then look up and start to be a bit more still. That's when Sarah is moving more, looking up after. And after that, Bastien is landing. So everything is moving in the shot, but not at the same intensity at the same time. There was also that kind of thinking in the first shot, 3 characters that I need to animate. So first, Sarah is reacting, watching the window. Then Emily and Bastien are looking. Bastien stands up, Sarah stands up, and then Emily. So each character has his or her moment. Next advice, perfect the cuts between the shots. You have to think about your film as a unit, made of shots that have to be well linked together, in character movement, in space. A nice example is the cut between shot 1 and 2, where Bastien has to start running on shot 1 and then keeping running on shot 2, to make a smooth movement. And one of the big problems I had was in that shot, because the characters were just popping in another place, between the previous shot and that one. They were near the stairs and then popping behind Emily. So in Callipeg I had to make a transformation layer and to take Sarah and Bastien and put them a bit further away. It was a simple solution here because the shot allowed it, but in some other situations it could be much more difficult to handle and I might have to animate again or to draw another point of view of the background. So here it was pretty easy, but it could be much more difficult. And that way they start a bit around the stairs. We see a shot from above. Sarah is starting to run toward the stairs and she is there in the next shot. You really have to think about that part when you do your layout, when you do your storyboard, and when you set everything in your background. Also, you have to think about continuity. If shot A is ending here in the movement, shot B should start here, even if it's a completely other composition. So the eye of the viewer is focused on one part at a time, and not going from here to here by the end and start of the next shot. Another important part, simplifying the character design. You can see the difference between that character design concept and the final characters. They still have the same identity, but I simplified some elements. I removed the glasses arms, I removed the hood, I simplified some hair, I removed some shoelaces. Everything needed to make it more simple to animate. Not easy, but easier. Your characters have to have simple shapes, simple volumes even, that you can move in space. You don't want to add unnecessary necklace, for example. That is not important for the story and that will be kind of a pain to animate during the animation process. Then you can think about switching from difficult shots to easy shots when making the animation. I started the animation of that film with the test shot, which is included in the film. It was that shot here, which is a medium complex shot, because I have all the characters in it, but the full-size characters are not moving a lot, and the other one, Emily in front, has a lot of different expressions, but you can see the hands, you can see the arms, you can see the legs, so it's pretty simple. And I made everything in that shot to make it really the final image. So animation, coloring, background, final colors on the background too, and compositing, so I can meet every problem possible in the pipeline. And then I worked on some simple shots, like this hand shot, or the close-up on Bastien by the window. The characters going to the window is also a pretty simple animation. And the last shots I made were the final shot and the first shot, which were to me the most complex, because in the final shot Emily is taking Bastien from her shoulders and putting him on the ground, so it was a difficult movement to handle. The flying lights were also a challenge, and for the first shot the difficulty was the duration of it, almost 10 seconds, with many subtle movement, like I talked about in the staging phase. But I think it's probably one of my favorite shots, because it's also the last shot I made, so I add a bit more of experience. And in a classic production, there is someone to tell you what shot comes before what shot, what person will work on that specific shot, depending on the complexity, the length and everything. But in a one-person production like I'm doing here, I made the shots pretty randomly, depending on what I wanted to do that specific week. But in my next short film, I think I will be a bit more structured in the way I make that shot and not the other one, in the order of shots I make. Because here I didn't have any specific deadline. Once the first deadline of April was just not possible, it was pretty much make it when you can. But if I had a specific deadline, I think I could have made the first shot before, because making it at the last moment could have been rushing it, and I might not be able to make it as complex and polished as I wished. So that's it for a few lessons I learned when making my short film. If you want to learn more about how to make a 2D animation short film and how Fragments of Sky was made, you still have a little bit of time to order your animation artbook on the Kickstarter campaign. It will also help the development of Callipeg and the making of my next short film. Thanks a lot for your support, and now start animating anywhere with Callipeg.